The town of Willow Creek was a place where everyone knew everyone. Children played freely in the streets, neighbors chatted over picket fences, and life generally moved at a slow, comforting pace. That peace shattered on a Tuesday morning when Sarah Miller, a beloved teacher and pillar of the community, vanished without a trace. Sarah was known for her bright smile and her kind heart. She taught third grade at Willow Creek Elementary and always had time for her students, whether it was helping them with their homework or listening to their worries. She was a devoted wife to Tom and a loving mother to their two children, 8-year-old Emily and 6-year-old Ben. The morning of her disappearance seemed ordinary enough. Tom remembered Sarah making breakfast, packing lunches, and sending the kids off to school with a kiss. He left for work shortly after, and Sarah planned to run some errands before heading to school herself. But she never arrived. When Sarah didn't show up for school, her colleagues became concerned. They tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Tom rushed home from work, his heart pounding in his chest. The house was empty, but everything seemed in order. Sarah's purse and keys were missing, but her car was still in the driveway. Panic set in quickly. Tom called the police, and a missing person investigation was launched immediately. The news spread through Willow Creek like wildfire, leaving everyone in shock and disbelief. How could Sarah, so vibrant and full of life, simply disappear? The initial search efforts were extensive. Police officers, volunteers, and even Sarah's students scoured the town and the surrounding areas, searching for any sign of her. They checked local parks, hiking trails, and even the nearby river, but found nothing. Flyers with Sarah's picture were plastered on every lamppost and storefront, pleading for anyone with information to come forward. Days turned into weeks, and the hope of finding Sarah alive began to dwindle. The police investigation stalled, with no solid leads to follow. Detectives interviewed Sarah's family, friends, and colleagues, but no one could offer any clues as to what might have happened to her. The lack of progress was agonizing for Tom and the children, who desperately clung to the hope that Sarah would somehow return home. The disappearance cast a dark shadow over Willow Creek. The once close-knit community felt fractured and fearful. People started locking their doors at night, and children were no longer allowed to play outside unsupervised. The sense of security and innocence that had once defined Willow Creek was gone, replaced by uncertainty and dread. Everyone wondered if Sarah would ever be found, and if the person responsible for her disappearance was still lurking among them. The Willow Creek Police Department, led by the seasoned but weary Detective Michael Davies, worked tirelessly on Sarah's case. Detective Davies, a father himself, felt the weight of the Miller family's anguish with each passing day. He knew that the chances of finding Sarah alive diminished with every hour that went by, but he refused to give up hope. The initial investigation focused on gathering as much information as possible about Sarah's life and routine. Detectives interviewed her husband, children, friends, colleagues, and neighbors, searching for any clues that might shed light on her disappearance. They delved into her personal and professional life, looking for any potential enemies or conflicts that might have led to foul play. However, the investigation quickly hit a wall. There were no signs of forced entry at Sarah's home, and her car remained parked in the driveway. Her cell phone records showed no unusual activity, and her bank accounts were untouched. There were no witnesses who had seen her after she left home that morning, and no credible leads to follow. Detective Davies and his team explored every possible scenario, from a random abduction to a planned disappearance. They investigated Sarah's past, searching for any hidden secrets or unresolved issues that might have contributed to her vanishing. They even considered the possibility that she had simply run away, although that seemed highly unlikely given her close-knit family and her strong ties to the community. The lack of evidence was frustrating and demoralizing for the detectives. They spent countless hours poring over maps, interviewing potential witnesses, and following up on every tip, no matter how far-fetched it seemed. But despite their best efforts, they were unable to uncover any solid leads that could point them in the right direction. As the weeks turned into months, the investigation began to lose momentum. The initial flurry of media attention subsided, and the public's interest waned. The police department continued to work on the case, but with fewer resources and less urgency. Detective Davies felt the pressure mounting as the Miller family's hopes dwindled and the community's anxiety grew. He knew that he couldn't let the case go cold. He owed it to Sarah, to her family, and to the people of Willow Creek to find out what had happened to her. He vowed to continue searching for answers, even if it meant dedicating the rest of his career to solving the mystery of Sarah Miller's disappearance. The frustration ate at him. Every night, he went home and saw his own family, and the reminder of Sarah's absence was a constant, painful prod to keep going. He just needed a break, a clue, anything to reignite the investigation. He just didn't know where to look. In a small house on the edge of Willow Creek lived 10-year-old Billy. Billy wasn't your typical kid glued to video games. He had an adventurous spirit and a keen curiosity about the world around him. He loved exploring the woods behind his house, building forts, and collecting interesting rocks and insects. His mom, a single parent named Susan, encouraged his outdoor pursuits, knowing it kept him active and engaged. One of Billy's favorite pastimes was walking along the roadside ditch near his home. It wasn't exactly a scenic route, but to Billy, it was a treasure trove of discarded objects and hidden surprises. He'd find lost toys, shiny bottle caps, and sometimes even small amounts of money. He imagined the stories behind each item, wondering who had lost them and how they had ended up there. Billy was a bright and imaginative boy, always looking for something new to discover. He had a kind heart and a genuine concern for others. He often helped his mom with chores around the house and was always willing to lend a hand to his neighbors. He wasn't aware of the dark cloud hanging over Willow Creek, not in the same way the adults were, but he sensed the unease and sadness in the air. He saw the missing person posters with Sarah's face on them and wondered where she had gone. He often asked his mom about Sarah, and Susan would gently explain that she was lost and that the police were trying to find her. Billy hoped they would find her soon because he knew how much her family must miss her. He imagined how scared she must be and wished he could do something to help. One sunny afternoon, while walking along his usual roadside route, Billy spotted something glinting in the sunlight at the bottom of a drainage ditch. He carefully climbed down the embankment, his eyes fixed on the sparkling object. It was a necklace, tangled in the weeds and partially submerged in muddy water. It wasn't just any necklace, it had a delicate silver chain and a beautiful heart-shaped pendant with tiny, glittering stones. Billy carefully picked up the necklace, brushing off the dirt and grime. He thought it was the prettiest thing he had ever found. He imagined it belonged to a princess or a movie star. He couldn't wait to show it to his mom. Little did he know that this seemingly insignificant discovery would hold the key to unlocking the mystery of Sarah Miller's disappearance and bring a glimmer of hope back to the grieving town of Willow Creek. This shiny trinket, lost and forgotten, was about to change everything. Beaming with pride, Billy rushed home, clutching the necklace tightly in his hand. He burst through the front door, calling out for his mom. "Mom! Mom! Look what I found!" Susan, who was in the kitchen preparing dinner, turned around, a smile on her face. "What is it, sweetie? Another one of your treasures?" Billy ran to her side and eagerly presented the necklace. "It's so pretty, Mom. I found it in the ditch. Isn't it beautiful?" Susan took the necklace from Billy's hand and examined it closely. The heart-shaped pendant sparkled under the kitchen light. It was indeed a beautiful piece of jewelry, but something about it seemed familiar. She frowned, trying to place where she had seen it before. Suddenly, it hit her. She remembered seeing a similar necklace in a missing person poster at the grocery store. The poster featured a picture of Sarah Miller, and Susan distinctly recalled the description of the necklace she was wearing when she disappeared, a silver chain with a heart-shaped pendant. A wave of shock washed over Susan. Could this be Sarah Miller's necklace? It seemed impossible, yet the resemblance was undeniable. Her heart started to race as she realized the potential significance of Billy's discovery. "Billy, honey, where exactly did you find this necklace?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Billy pointed in the direction of the road. In the ditch, Mom. Near the big oak tree. Susan's mind raced. The ditch where Billy found the necklace was not far from Sarah Miller's house. Could it be possible that Sarah had been there? Had something happened to her in that area? She knew she had to report this to the police immediately. This could be the break they had been waiting for, the clue that could finally lead them to Sarah. "Okay, Billy," Susan said, trying to remain calm. "Let's go inside and wash up. Then, we're going to call the police." Billy, sensing the seriousness in his mom's voice, nodded obediently. He didn't understand the full implications of his discovery, but he knew that it was important. He followed his mom into the house, his mind filled with questions. He hoped that the necklace would help find Sarah and bring her back to her family. He didn't know it yet, but his innocent find was about to turn the quiet town of Willow Creek upside down. The small, glittering heart was a beacon in the darkness, a symbol of hope in a community desperate for answers. Susan's call to the Willow Creek Police Department was answered by Officer Johnson, a young and eager officer who had been following the Sarah Miller case closely. Susan, her voice filled with nervous excitement, explained Billy's discovery and her suspicions about the necklace. Officer Johnson, recognizing the potential importance of this information, immediately dispatched a patrol car to Susan's house. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived, their expressions serious and focused. They listened intently as Susan recounted the events of the afternoon, carefully examining the necklace and taking notes. After a brief consultation, the officers contacted Detective Davies, who was still at the station poring over old case files. Detective Davies, initially skeptical, listened patiently as the officers described the necklace and the location where it was found. He knew that they had to follow up on every lead, no matter how small or unlikely it seemed. "Bring the necklace to the station," Detective Davies instructed. "I want to see it myself. And have a forensics team meet me there." The officers carefully placed the necklace in an evidence bag and transported it to the police station, with Susan and Billy following close behind in their own car. At the station, Detective Davies met with Susan and Billy, thanking them for their quick thinking and cooperation. He gently questioned Billy about the exact location where he found the necklace, marking the spot on a map. Detective Davies then examined the necklace himself, his experienced eyes scanning every detail. He recognized the heart-shaped pendant from the missing person posters and felt a surge of cautious optimism. This could be the break they had been desperately searching for. He immediately handed the necklace over to the forensics team, instructing them to analyze it for any traces of DNA, fingerprints, or other evidence that could link it to Sarah Miller or her abductor. He also ordered a thorough search of the area where Billy had found the necklace, hoping to uncover any additional clues. As the forensics team began their work, Detective Davies sat down with Susan and Billy, offering them words of comfort and reassurance. He explained that the necklace could be a crucial piece of evidence, but cautioned them not to get their hopes up too high. The investigation was still ongoing, and there was no guarantee that the necklace would lead them to Sarah. However, deep down, Detective Davies felt a sense of renewed hope. After months of dead ends and frustration, Billy's discovery had injected new life into the investigation. He knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like they were finally on the right track. The little heart-shaped necklace, found by a curious boy in a roadside ditch, had become a symbol of hope for the entire town of Willow Creek. The forensics lab buzzed with activity as the team meticulously examined the necklace. Dr. Emily Carter, the lead forensic scientist, carefully photographed the necklace from every angle, documenting its condition and any visible traces of evidence. She then began the painstaking process of collecting samples of any foreign material found on the necklace, including soil, plant matter, and fibers. "We need to be thorough," Dr. Carter told her team. "This necklace could be our only chance to find out what happened to Sarah Miller." The team worked diligently, using specialized tools and techniques to extract even the smallest particles of evidence from the necklace. They swabbed the surface of the pendant for DNA, carefully collecting any skin cells or bodily fluids that might be present. They also examined the chain for fingerprints, using a dusting powder to reveal any latent prints. Meanwhile, another team of officers conducted a grid search of the area where Billy had found the necklace. They meticulously combed through the roadside ditch, searching for any other items that might be related to Sarah Miller's disappearance. They found a few pieces of trash and some animal tracks, but nothing that appeared to be significant. Back at the lab, Dr. Carter and her team were making progress. They had identified several different types of soil on the necklace, as well as fragments of leaves and twigs. They carefully catalogued each sample, preparing them for further analysis. "The soil composition is interesting," Dr. Carter remarked. "It's not the typical soil found in this area. It's more consistent with soil found in the woods further north." This discovery raised a red flag for Detective Davies. He knew that there was a large wooded area on the outskirts of town, several miles from where Billy had found the necklace. Could Sarah have been taken to that area? He immediately ordered a team of officers to conduct a search of the wooded area, focusing on the locations where the soil matched the samples found on the necklace. He also requested aerial support, using a helicopter to scan the area from above. As the search intensified, Dr. Carter and her team continued to analyze the necklace. They were able to extract a partial DNA sample from the pendant, but it was too degraded to be a conclusive match to Sarah Miller. However, they were able to determine that the DNA belonged to a female, which further strengthened the possibility that the necklace was indeed hers. The pressure was mounting as the hours ticked by. Everyone involved in the investigation knew that time was of the essence. They had to find Sarah Miller, and they had to do it quickly. The little heart-shaped necklace, once just a piece of discarded jewelry, had become a symbol of hope and a catalyst for action. The forensics team was working around the clock, determined to uncover the truth and bring Sarah home. The search of the wooded area proved to be challenging. The terrain was rough and uneven, and the thick foliage made it difficult to see. The officers spread out, carefully examining the ground for any signs of disturbance or anything that might be connected to Sarah Miller. The helicopter circled overhead, its pilot using thermal imaging technology to scan the area for any unusual heat signatures. They were looking for anything that might indicate a recent human presence, such as a campsite or a discarded vehicle. After several hours of searching, one of the officers stumbled upon a small clearing hidden deep within the woods. The clearing was overgrown with weeds, but it was clear that someone had been there recently. There were several flattened patches of grass, as well as some broken branches and disturbed soil. The officer immediately radioed in his discovery, and Detective Davies rushed to the scene. He carefully examined the clearing, his heart pounding in his chest. This could be the place where Sarah had been held, the place where she had last been seen. He ordered the forensics team to come to the clearing and collect samples of the soil, plant matter, and any other evidence they could find. He also instructed the officers to search the surrounding area for any footprints or tire tracks. As the forensics team began their work, Detective Davies noticed something glinting in the sunlight near a cluster of trees. He walked over to investigate and discovered a small, silver earring lying on the ground. It was a simple, elegant earring, the kind that Sarah Miller often wore. Detective Davies carefully picked up the earring, placing it in an evidence bag. He felt a surge of hope, mixed with a sense of dread. He knew that they were getting closer to the truth, but he also knew that the truth might be more terrible than he could imagine. Back at the lab, Dr. Carter and her team were comparing the soil samples from the clearing to the soil samples from the necklace. The results were conclusive, the soil compositions matched perfectly. This confirmed that the necklace had been in the clearing, and that Sarah Miller had likely been there as well. The discovery of the clearing and the matching soil samples gave the investigation a major boost. Detective Davies now had a specific location to focus on, a place where he believed Sarah Miller had been held captive. He knew that he had to act quickly, before it was too late. He just needed to figure out who had brought her there and why. The earring, though small, was another breadcrumb on the trail to the person who had stolen Sarah from Willow Creek. With the clearing identified as a key location, Detective Davies focused on finding out who had access to it and who might have taken Sarah Miller there. He instructed his team to canvass the area, interviewing residents and business owners who lived or worked near the woods. He wanted to know if anyone had seen anything unusual in the weeks leading up to Sarah's disappearance, any suspicious vehicles or individuals lurking in the area. Meanwhile, the forensics team continued to analyze the evidence from the clearing, searching for any clues that might lead them to the abductor. They carefully examined the earring, looking for fingerprints or DNA. They also analyzed the tire tracks that had been found near the clearing, hoping to identify the make and model of the vehicle that had been there. As the investigation progressed, Detective Davies received a tip from a local resident who reported seeing a suspicious van parked near the woods on several occasions. The resident described the van as an older model, dark blue, with rusty patches and a missing hubcap. Detective Davies immediately checked the vehicle registration records and discovered that a van matching that description was registered to a man named Mr. Peterson, who lived alone on the outskirts of town. Mr. Peterson was a quiet, unassuming man who kept to himself. He didn't have a criminal record, and no one seemed to know much about him. Detective Davies decided to pay Mr. Peterson a visit. He and two other officers drove to Mr. Peterson's house, a small, run-down bungalow with an overgrown yard. They knocked on the door, and after a few moments, Mr. Peterson answered. He seemed nervous and agitated, avoiding eye contact with the officers. Detective Davies introduced himself and explained that they were investigating the disappearance of Sarah Miller. He asked Mr. Peterson if he had seen anything unusual in the area recently. Mr. Peterson denied having seen anything suspicious. He claimed that he had been at home alone for the past several weeks, working on his car. Detective Davies noticed that Mr. Peterson's hands were covered in grease and that there was a dark blue van parked in the driveway, matching the description provided by the local resident. Detective Davies asked Mr. Peterson if he would mind if they took a look at his van. Mr. Peterson hesitated, but eventually agreed. As the officers examined the van, they noticed that one of the hubcaps was missing and that there were traces of mud and plant matter on the tires. The mud and plant matter looked suspiciously similar to the samples that had been found in the clearing. The net was tightening. It was time to bring Mr. Peterson in. At the police station, Mr. Peterson was taken to an interrogation room. Detective Davies and another officer sat across from him, their expressions serious and unwavering. Detective Davies began by reiterating the purpose of the interview, reminding Mr. Peterson that he was a suspect in the disappearance of Sarah Miller. Mr. Peterson continued to deny any involvement in Sarah's disappearance. He claimed that he had never met her and that he had no idea why his van would have been seen near the woods. He insisted that he had been at home alone, working on his car. Detective Davies presented Mr. Peterson with the evidence they had gathered, the tip from the local resident, the missing hubcap on his van, and the mud and plant matter on the tires that matched the samples from the clearing. He also mentioned the earring that had been found in the woods, suggesting that it might belong to Sarah Miller. Mr. Peterson became increasingly agitated as Detective Davies laid out the evidence against him. He started to sweat and fidget, avoiding eye contact with the officers. He stammered and contradicted himself, struggling to maintain his composure. Detective Davies pressed him harder, challenging his alibi and pointing out the inconsistencies in his story. He appealed to Mr. Peterson's conscience, urging him to tell the truth and help them find Sarah Miller. Finally, after hours of questioning, Mr. Peterson broke down. He confessed that he had seen Sarah Miller walking alone on the road near his house on the day she disappeared. He admitted that he had offered her a ride, and she had accepted. He claimed that he had only intended to give her a ride home, but that he had become infatuated with her. He had taken her to the clearing in the woods, hoping to convince her to spend time with him. When she refused, he had become angry and violent. Mr. Peterson confessed to assaulting Sarah Miller and leaving her in the woods. He claimed that he hadn't intended to kill her, but that she had died from her injuries. He said that he had panicked and buried her body in a shallow grave. Detective Davies, his heart heavy with grief and anger, asked Mr. Peterson to lead them to Sarah's body. Mr. Peterson agreed, and a team of officers drove him back to the woods. He led them to a remote location, where they discovered a shallow grave hidden beneath a pile of leaves and branches. The officers carefully exhumed the body, confirming that it was indeed Sarah Miller. The discovery brought a sense of closure to the investigation, but it also brought a wave of grief and sorrow to the community of Willow Creek. The nightmare was over, but the pain would linger for a long time to come. The next step was to search Mr. Peterson's property for further evidence. Detective Davies requested a warrant. He knew that Mr. Peterson was hiding something. With a search warrant in hand, Detective Davies and his team returned to Mr. Peterson's property. The small house seemed even more sinister in the cold light of day, its overgrown yard and peeling paint a reflection of the darkness that had been hidden within its walls. The officers cordoned off the area, ensuring that no one could enter or leave the property without their permission. They began their search, meticulously combing through every room of the house, looking for any evidence that might connect Mr. Peterson to Sarah Miller's disappearance. They found nothing of immediate interest inside the house. It was sparsely furnished and cluttered with junk, but there were no signs of Sarah Miller or any evidence of a struggle. The officers did find several disturbing items, including a collection of knives and a stack of magazines featuring images of women, but nothing that directly implicated Mr. Peterson in Sarah's murder. The search then moved to the exterior of the property, focusing on the areas where the soil matched the samples from the necklace and the clearing. The officers carefully examined the garden, the driveway, and the area around the garage, collecting soil samples and looking for any signs of disturbance. As they searched the garage, one of the officers noticed something unusual about the concrete floor. There was a small, rectangular patch that appeared to be a different color and texture than the rest of the floor. He called Detective Davies over to take a look. Detective Davies examined the patch closely, running his hand over the surface. He noticed that it was slightly raised and that there were faint lines around the edges, as if it had been recently repaired. He suspected that something might be hidden beneath the concrete. He instructed the officers to bring in a jackhammer and carefully break through the concrete patch. As they chipped away at the concrete, they uncovered a dark, gaping hole. It was a hidden, secret basement, concealed beneath the floor of Mr. Peterson's garage. Detective Davies felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that they had found something significant, something that would finally reveal the full extent of Mr. Peterson's depravity. He ordered the officers to proceed with caution, unsure of what they might find in the darkness below. The air grew thick with anticipation. Everyone knew this was it. The answer to where Sarah had been was just below their feet. Detective Davies instructed two officers to carefully descend into the dark basement, their flashlights cutting through the inky blackness. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, a chilling premonition of what they might find. The basement was small and cramped, with rough concrete walls and a low ceiling. It was dimly lit by a single bare bulb hanging from a wire, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the room. The officers moved cautiously, their senses on high alert. The first thing they noticed was the soundproofing. The walls were lined with thick layers of foam, designed to muffle any sounds that might escape from the basement. This confirmed Detective Davies's worst fears. Mr. Peterson had clearly intended to keep whatever happened in that basement a secret. As they explored the basement further, they discovered a makeshift bed in one corner, consisting of a stained mattress and a dirty blanket. There were also several empty food containers and water bottles scattered around the floor, indicating that someone had been living in the basement for an extended period of time. The officers then noticed a small table in the center of the room, upon which sat a collection of disturbing items. There were photographs of Sarah Miller, newspaper clippings about her disappearance, and several handwritten notes detailing Mr. Peterson's obsession with her. The notes revealed that Mr. Peterson had been stalking Sarah for months, watching her every move and fantasizing about her. He had convinced himself that she was meant to be with him, and he had planned to abduct her and keep her in the basement until she came to her senses. The officers also found several items of Sarah Miller's clothing in the basement, including her shoes, her purse, and the dress she had been wearing on the day she disappeared. These items confirmed that Sarah had been held captive in the basement, and that Mr. Peterson had been responsible for her abduction and murder. Detective Davies, who had remained at the top of the stairs, listened intently as the officers described their findings. He felt a wave of nausea wash over him as he realized the full extent of Mr. Peterson's depravity. The basement was a chamber of horrors, a testament to the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. He gave the order for forensics to descend. Every inch of this place needed to be examined. The evidence they needed to put Peterson away for good was here. The secret was out. The evidence found in the basement was overwhelming. Mr. Peterson was formally charged with the abduction, assault, and murder of Sarah Miller. The news spread quickly through Willow Creek, bringing a mixture of relief and sorrow. The mystery had finally been solved, but the truth was far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. The trial of Mr. Peterson was a media sensation. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, including the necklace, the earring, the soil samples, the tire tracks, and the items found in the basement. They painted a picture of Mr. Peterson as a deranged stalker who had meticulously planned Sarah Miller's abduction and murder. The defense argued that Mr. Peterson was mentally ill and that he had not intended to kill Sarah Miller. They claimed that he had simply snapped under pressure and that he should be held responsible for manslaughter, not murder. The jury deliberated for several days, carefully weighing the evidence and the arguments presented by both sides. Finally, they reached a verdict: guilty on all counts. Mr. Peterson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The conviction brought a sense of justice to the community of Willow Creek, but it did little to ease the pain and grief of Sarah Miller's family. Tom and the children were devastated by her loss, struggling to cope with the reality of her absence. However, they found some solace in the outpouring of support from the community. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers offered their condolences and assistance, helping them to navigate the difficult days and weeks that followed. Billy, the young boy who had found the necklace, was hailed as a hero. He was praised for his sharp eyes and his quick thinking, which had ultimately led to the discovery of Sarah Miller's body and the arrest of her killer. Billy, however, didn't see himself as a hero. He was simply glad that he had been able to help bring Sarah home and bring some closure to her family. He hoped that his discovery would inspire others to be vigilant and to never give up hope, even in the darkest of times. The town of Willow Creek would never be the same, but they would heal. And they would always remember Sarah. And they would always be grateful to Billy. Tom Miller sat in his living room, surrounded by family and friends. The trial was over, the verdict delivered, but the emptiness in his heart remained. He looked at Emily and Ben, their faces etched with sadness, and knew that he had to be strong for them. He thought about Sarah, her bright smile, her infectious laugh, her unwavering love for her family. He remembered the day they met, the day they got married, the day their children were born. Every memory was a precious treasure, a reminder of the beautiful life they had shared. He knew that he could never replace her, but he also knew that he had to move forward, to create a new life for himself and his children. He had to find a way to honor her memory and to keep her spirit alive. He decided to start a foundation in Sarah's name, dedicated to supporting children in need. The foundation would provide scholarships, school supplies, and other resources to help underprivileged children succeed in life. It would be a way to continue Sarah's legacy of helping others and to make a positive impact on the world. He also decided to become more involved in the community, volunteering his time and resources to various causes. He wanted to make Willow Creek a better place, a place where children could grow up safe and happy, a place where Sarah's spirit would always be felt. He talked to Emily and Ben about his plans, and they were supportive and enthusiastic. They wanted to help him honor their mother's memory and to make a difference in the world. Together, they began to rebuild their lives, brick by brick. They found strength in each other, in their memories of Sarah, and in the support of their community. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they were determined to face it together. One evening, as Tom was tucking Ben into bed, Ben asked him a question that he had been dreading. "Dad," Ben said, "do you think Mom is watching us from heaven?" Tom paused, his heart aching with sadness. He looked into Ben's innocent eyes and knew that he had to answer honestly. "Yes, Ben," he said. "I believe that Mom is watching over us from heaven. She is always with us, in our hearts and in our memories." Ben smiled, a single tear. Detective Davies stood by the window of his office, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. The Sarah Miller case was officially closed, but the memories of the investigation would stay with him forever. He thought about Sarah, her kindness, her warmth, her unwavering spirit. He had only met her briefly, but he had been deeply moved by her story and by the impact she had had on the community. He also thought about Mr. Peterson, the quiet, unassuming man who had harbored such a dark secret. He couldn't understand how someone could be capable of such violence and depravity. He wondered what had driven Mr. Peterson to commit such a heinous crime. He knew that he would never have all the answers, but he hoped that the conviction would bring some measure of peace to Sarah Miller's family and friends. He also hoped that it would serve as a reminder that even in the most peaceful of communities, evil can lurk beneath the surface. He thought about Billy, the young boy who had found the necklace. He had visited Billy and Susan a few days after the trial, thanking them for their courage and their help. He had given Billy a small token of appreciation, a certificate of commendation from the Willow Creek Police Department. He knew that Billy's discovery had been a turning point in the investigation, and that without it, they might never have found Sarah Miller. He was grateful for Billy's sharp eyes and his quick thinking. He also knew that Billy would carry the weight of his discovery for the rest of his life. He hoped that Billy would be able to find peace and healing, and that he would never lose his sense of wonder and curiosity. As the sun set, Detective Davies turned away from the window and walked back to his desk. He had other cases to work on, other mysteries to solve. He knew that the work of a police officer was never. Years passed. The Sarah Miller Foundation thrived, providing opportunities for countless children in Willow Creek and beyond. Tom found a new purpose in his life, dedicating himself to honoring Sarah's memory and making a positive impact on the world. Emily and Ben grew into remarkable young adults, shaped by the tragedy they had endured but also by the love and support they had received. Emily became a teacher, inspired by her mother's passion for education. Ben pursued a career in law enforcement, driven by a desire to protect others and to bring justice to those who had been wronged. They never forgot their mother, and they often spoke about her, sharing stories and memories with their own children. They kept her spirit alive in their hearts and in their actions. One sunny afternoon, Tom, Emily, and Ben visited Sarah's grave. They placed flowers on the headstone, a simple gesture of love and remembrance. They stood in silence for a few moments, each lost in their own thoughts and memories. Emily spoke first. "I miss her so much," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I wish she could have been here to see us grow up." Ben nodded in agreement. "She would have been so proud of you both," he said, looking at his sister and his father. "She always believed in us." Tom put his arms around his children, drawing them close. "She is still with us," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "She is always in our hearts." They stood there for a long time, embracing each other and remembering Sarah. They knew that the pain of her loss would never completely faded. They learned to live with the pain, to cherish the memories, and to find joy in the present. And what of Billy? He grew up in Willow Creek, always remembering the day he found the necklace. He never sought recognition or praise, but he understood the significance of his discovery. He realized that even the smallest act of kindness or the simplest observation could have a profound impact on the world. He became a strong advocate for community vigilance, encouraging people to be aware of their surroundings and to report anything suspicious to the authorities. He spoke at schools and community events, sharing his story and inspiring others to get involved in making their neighborhood safer. He often said that Sarah Miller's legacy was not just one of tragedy, but also one of hope and resilience. Her story reminded people that even in the face of darkness, there is always light to be found. The story of Sarah Miller's disappearance and the discovery of her killer serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of community vigilance. It shows that even the smallest details, like a child's discovery of a shiny object in a roadside ditch, can make a difference in solving crimes and bringing justice to victims and their families. It also highlights the importance of law enforcement and the dedication of the men and women who work tirelessly to protect our communities. Detective Davies and his team never gave up on the Sarah Miller case, and their perseverance ultimately led to the arrest and conviction of her killer. But perhaps the most important lesson of this story is that even in the face of tragedy, there is always hope. The community of Willow Creek came together to support Sarah Miller's family and to rebuild their lives. They showed that love and compassion can triumph over evil and that even the darkest of times can be overcome. And so, remember to be vigilant, to be kind, and to never underestimate the power of hope. For even a small heart, lost in the mud, can shine a light on the truth.